I'm Dutch, and let's react to the Americans. Hello, and welcome to my channel. My name is Johan, and I'm a typical Dutchman. And if you're planning to come over to Europe for your holidays or to live here permanently, or if you're wondering why is everything so expensive in America versus Europe, then you are at the right channel, because in this channel I react to videos about the cost of life and living in America versus the cost of life and living in Europe, and specifically the Netherlands. And for today I'm going to take a look at a video from Hintside. I'm going to start with a subscribe and a like, and the question here is why living in the Netherlands has become impossible. And I looked up this video because I was looking up at his channel for last Saturday when I did the live session. I saw right up here, I saw the Netherlands with poor, and I was wondering, what is it? Why do I see this thumbnail? So I was intrigued by the thumbnail. So I started it, and I did not start it, but I looked and I see why living in the Netherlands has become impossible. And the thumbnail says poor. So let's take a look what is happening in the Netherlands and why is living become impossible. Let's take a look. Switching screens. And go.
The Netherlands is celebrated for its fairness, but the system is failing. Housing protests have amassed huge turnouts. The Dutch have a unique housing market, of which social housing is a cornerstone.
I'm a Dutchman, I have an accent, but I hear that this guy also has an accent and he's from the Netherlands, so reacting to my own fellow countrymen, let's hear what he has to say. And yes, we do have social housing.
They have by far the largest share of social housing in the developed world.
Whoa. 34% of all our houses is social housing. Austria 24, Denmark 21, United Kingdom 16. 34%. I did not expect this. I would have expected a lower number than 34%.
About a third of all homes are kept off the market to be managed by an NGO. Their goal is not to make money, but to provide affordable rental homes. And the eligibility requirements are met by 40% of the population. But
40% is eligible for social housing.
But whenever there is a housing protest, a common demand is to add even more social housing and to make them even more accessible. But despite the Netherlands already having the largest share of social housing, they also have the most overburdened rental market in the developed world.
Back.
They also have the most
renting. Why is renting so difficult in the Netherlands? Yeah, because we don't have enough houses
in the developed world. 25% of Dutch citizens spend more than
40% of their income on rent. 25% spend 40% of their income on rent. And we have something like rent subsidized by the government. So you get money from the government to pay your rent, not fully but partially until a max. So is this with or without it?
40% of their income on rent. Something is clearly not working.
And I want to find out what it is.
This is why the Dutch are in deep trouble with hindsight.
Yeah, people over profit is the translation, but it's not what they say. And I know some of my subscribers are also Dutch. It's not people over profit, but people over market. So yeah, it's more, the people are more important than the market is. Yeah. But it's 30 and still on a room, yeah.
Over the past years, major protests have erupted.
Het gaat over de basis van de mens en dat is een huis.
Dat willen we eruit halen. De sociale woningbouw komt.
The goal of these protesters is often to add more social housing to the existing housing stock.
Yeah. Demanding affordable housing. More houses. That's generally a problem if you're coming over to the Netherlands, or I will say if you're coming over to Europe, Germany, Belgium, Denmark, etc. It's a general problem in Europe that we don't have enough housing because of the many immigrants that we have and refugees that we have that also need a house and a job. So, yeah, they are totally right that there is a large problem with housing and getting a house in the Netherlands.
And that seems to make sense on a gut level.
But I want to look at the whole picture. So I went into the archives and I pulled up some of the most interesting statistics, and I found a lot of really eye-opening things. To understand the long-term trend, it's important that we start by understanding how the housing market took shape.
Around the mid-1850s, the working class was moving to the cities to work in...
Mid-1860s, yeah, the working class. This is the old, I don't know, Amsterdam. I'm not sure this is, but the old canals, this is Dutch in the old style, yeah.
Factories. In just 3 decades, the population of cities like Amsterdam, Rotterdam, and The Hague more than doubled, but living conditions were often poor. This affected the productivity and health of workers. So some entrepreneurs started woningbouwverenigingen, housing.
Ooh, nice word, yeah. Housing associations, woningbouwverenigingen, vertegenwoordigers. For my Dutch subscribers. Make it a bit longer, yeah. Housing associations. This is something that should happen now in the United States, because what happened to us in those years, 80 years ago, more than 80 years ago, 100 years ago, is now happening in the United States.
Housing associations. These were privately owned companies with shareholders. There existed some 200 of them, and by the turn of the century, they provided about 10,000 families with homes. It was still a small segment of housing, but that would change.
Behind are the grim years of famine and oppression. The bands play and the people welcome the dawn of a free new day.
World War II left the country in ruins.
Yeah, Netherlands war damage estimated at 300 million.
Of all Dutch homes, nearly a fifth was damaged and tens of thousands were heavily damaged or destroyed. There was a massive shortage of homes, or woningnood, how the Dutch called it. 250,000 homes were needed. The government was tasked with a momentous challenge, but they had an idea. Housing associations had primarily existed to house workers, but the government placed them under tight supervision, and they provided billions in funding to let them supply hundreds of thousands of affordable homes for all Dutch citizens. It led to a building frenzy between...
Yeah, long concrete, large concrete buildings with a lot of houses on some few square meters.
1950 and 1980, they added 2.5 million new homes, almost doubling the entire housing stock. The shortage of homes now dropped from around 300,000 in 1945 to about 75,000 in 1970. Housing associations played a crucial part of this, and they were basically an extension of the government. But after the housing shortage was somewhat relieved, they started to liberalize. One of their goals was to encourage homeownership. In 1945, most people were still living in a privately rented apartment. Over the years, this figure dropped substantially to just 19%. Homeownership had become more common. This was encouraged by the government, amongst other things, with the hypotheekrenteaftrek,
Oh, he's throwing in a lot of large words in it. Hypotheekrente, a tax break for homeowners, yeah.
tax break for homeowners. Over that same period, social housing had become a major segment of the housing stock, making up 43% of all homes at its peak in 1989. The transition to widespread social housing had cost the government billions, and in the 1980s and 90s, many felt that it was time for these associations to stand on their own feet. The government cut their funding, and from the mid-1990s and onwards, they started operating as non-profit private businesses. They had a social mission to provide affordable housing, but were now operating without any subsidies.
So in many socialist countries, these types of homes are owned by the state, whereas in countries like the United States, housing is almost entirely driven by the market. But the Dutch created a hybrid model.
Non-profit housing operated with market-oriented principles. So how did it go wrong?
So the only reason why we can make these videos is because we have sponsors. They help us pay for editors and writers, and today's sponsor has been a longtime friend of the channel.
If you're watching this video without a premium subscription, or if you're using any service on the internet without paying, your data will be collected. There exists an entire industry out there of companies who are collecting your data to sell them to data brokers.
That is a major reason why you receive so much junk mail and robot calls, and it leaves you vulnerable to identity theft.
The solution is Incogni. They reach out to data brokers on your behalf, and they make requests for your data to be deleted. They already took my data off 135 lists, and they're working on 12 more at this very moment. In the activity log, you can see exactly of which list your data has recently been deleted.
If you want to restore your privacy, Incogni is offering a 60% discount of an annual plan if you use my link in the pinned comment or in the description. That is 60% off a yearly plan. And now, let's go back to the Netherlands.
Housing was historically considered a social good, but it became a tool for building wealth.
Became a tool for building wealth. Yeah.
I mentioned that tax break for homeowners, and that's a good example.
It was originally conceived to encourage people to buy a home. If you buy a house for $500,000 and get a typical 30-year mortgage with a 4% interest rate, you pay about €360,000 in interest, which was made tax deductible. Homeowners, while paying off their mortgage, save over €130,000 in taxes.
That's great if you own your house, but here's the problem.
You got a major tax break, but your neighbor who rents a similar house didn't get any of that. In other words, the system drives inequality between people who own and people who rent.
And that's just a small piece of the puzzle.
Social housing exists for the 40% of people with the lowest incomes. Housing associations build and manage these homes, and the first years after being deregulated were ridden with scandal.
De Rotterdam voeren de nieuwe waterweg uit.
This is the SS Rotterdam, a cruise ship that was launched in 1958. It has since traveled the world until, after decades of service in 2000, it was time to retire.
So what does this have to do with housing? Nothing.
But a major
It has nothing to do. Okay. Westcourt Hotels.
housing association in Rotterdam purchased this ship for €30 million. They started renovations with the idea to convert it into a hotel and a tourist attraction.
This raised a lot of eyebrows because the mission of a social housing organization is to provide affordable housing. Don't forget, they're a non-profit. So why would they get involved with this kind of projects?
But then they had an unexpected setback. They believed that they would spend about €6 million for the renovation, but it ended up costing €256 million.
These stories led to a debate about whether housing associations should perhaps be regulated a little bit more, and that's what started happening in the early 2010s.
But more cracks started to show. In Amsterdam, the city with the highest cost of living and arguably the hardest place to find an affordable home in the city center, housing associations started selling their assets en masse.
Yeah. selling off, giving the people who are renting the opportunity to buy their own home for some discount.
As a result, this reduced the affordable housing stock in the city center. This contributed to a higher cost of rent because the prices of private rentals were increasing faster than those of social rentals. But it was designed to make housing less dependent on social housing. In 2013, the government imposed the verhuurdersheffing, the landlord levy.
Oh, he's throwing in all these nice words, yeah.
This tax forced housing associations to pay billions of euros to the state and to push more houses to the private market.
One of the goals of these policies was to make it easier for people to buy a home by increasing the availability of houses on the private market.
But the rate of home ownership didn't change at all. It basically flatlined. And now with these measures, it became more difficult for housing associations to build new homes.
The state is obliged to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by the end of 2020.
In 2019, a court ruling forced the Netherlands to lower their emissions of nitrogen. And this immediately froze 18,000 projects, including the construction of 75,000 housing units.
Yeah, environmental issues. Yeah, 75,000 housing. It's still not enough, even if those were built.
The rate of construction was already trending downwards, while over this same period, the shortage of homes was increasing. In 1945, there was a shortage of about 300,000 homes. This lowered over the next years, but especially in these last 2 decades, it really got out of control, with a peak of 450,000 homes in 2025.
Yeah. One of our politicians, I don't know which one, said we need to build a village every year, a village of 100,000 every year to get back to a normal housing market so that everyone who needs a house actually get a house. A village of 100,000 each year.
In numbers, not percentages, the Netherlands now has a greater housing shortage than in the years after World War II. In 2020, 1 in every 3 homes in Amsterdam was sold to foreigners. This sparked debate about opkoopbescherming, purchase protection.
Oh, that's a new one for me.
The policy aimed to protect homes that were owner-occupied to be bought up by investors. It was rolled out in most major cities. In 2021, over 15,000 people participated in a march demanding more affordable housing. It was the largest housing protest
in a decade.
In decades. The cost of housing had nearly doubled in the 10 years between 2012 and 2022. And between these 2 years alone, home prices increased by 20%. People were angry. The policies that were supposed to provide more affordable homes and to make buying easier, renting cheaper, and they were intended to create more equality in the housing market were failing miserably for them. And now there's a new plan.
A new plan? Oh, what will this be?
One of the main goals of the current government is to build 900,000 new homes by 2030. They are broken down like this. 300,000, or a third, is expected to be built and managed by social housing organizations. So the government still believes in this approach.
I opened this video by showing that the Netherlands has both a very large percentage of social housing and at the same time they have a remarkably high percentage of renters that are overburdened by the cost of rent. But I don't mean to imply that this is caused by social housing, or that social housing has a net negative effect on the housing market. It is more complex than that.
Yeah, he's right. There's no correlation between those two. No, it is not.
For decades, the Netherlands didn't build enough homes, and construction is now hindered by goals to reduce emissions. The Dutch population has grown faster than anybody expected. People bought more homes as an investment, and strict land use restrictions, labor shortages, and rising construction costs have all contributed to a slow response to rapidly increasing demand.
Much of this is rooted in policy. The Dutch have tried to balance their social mission with advantages of a market-oriented approach, but they have moved too far in either direction in the past, and we've lived through the consequences.
Yeah, and something else, I don't know if you, because we're in the final 1.5 minutes, so I don't think that he touched this topic, but we are, I believe Wilder's term was, we are full, but we don't have enough space to build new houses. Even that we got with our ingenuity, Flevopolder and Markenland, and we recovered a lot of land from the sea. We also have our obligation to nature and to forest recovery, etc. So at some point, there is now square meters available to buy to build new houses, and only Rotterdam has skyscrapers, but I don't think that you find anywhere else in the Netherlands skyscrapers like you see in London and in United States, everywhere. It's a solution, but it's not a good solution for the Netherlands. They say because we are a flat country on the edge of many river endings, river deltas. So it's not a good solid ground to build such high towers, and we are below sea level. So that combination makes it almost impossible to build skyscrapers so that we have more houses per square meters.
The Dutch are in uncharted territory. This has never been done before.
Then on a final note, in last week's video about Poland, I did something that I've only done once before on this channel. I went on camera and I explained that lately we've not been so lucky with the YouTube algorithm. And one of the reasons that I saw for this was a lack of positive engagement. So what I did is I asked you to like the video and to subscribe to the channel, and so many of you did. It felt incredible, but it did so much more than that. So if I open my YouTube Studio app, it actually said that this video did better than others because more subscribers were choosing to engage with this video. So it was actually your positive feedback that made this video blow up, and please continue. For you, placing a like and writing a comment or subscribing to the channel is very low effort, but for me it means all the difference in the world, and it actually makes it viable to make these videos and to spend
same over here.
so much time on it. And then after that, here are 2 more videos for you to consider for your next watch.
Yeah, but those are from Finland and Poland, and I was triggered by the thumbnail of the Netherlands. I want to know what is going on. It's a good video, I cannot say. He did extremely good research. I've seen a lot of stuff, good stuff. Most of them I already know, so I could confirm. But yeah, I hope that I could make it more informative, giving extra information. If you're planning to come over to Europe or to the Netherlands, that you have in your mind, wait, if I want to go to the Netherlands, it's not possible directly to get a house within 2 or 3 weeks. You actually need to think about 4 to 6 months before you can buy a house or rent a house, maybe, but renting a house is more expensive than buying a house. And of course, you can rent an Airbnb or some other bed and breakfast companies, but then you also have a higher rent price. So if you like the video with my information on it, then press like. And if you want to see more of my videos, then maybe this is a good one to go to. And if you would, like he said, please subscribe to the channel. That would mean the world to me. and the algorithm will do some extras on this. Thank you for watching and see you in the next video.